that work? Okay. I think I can get this. I need a roadie.
What?
I think I need this up a bit.
It's called eat the mic and put it up.
There you go. That better?
Move it up.
Okay. All right, dudette. I don't like him. He was with the Green Party. He obviously only cares about the environment and has just joined the Liberals so he can win. Well, I like him. He took a stand on the environment and learned by talking with our community all about our concerns. He thinks he can make a difference, and I really like what I've seen from him so far to demonstrate that he can. He's already having an impact on our local politics. Did you see he raised over $2,500 to help build the hub for 360 Kids? I don't like him. He's not anybody in this town. He's never been elected to anything, and he writes letters to the editor and endorses Reza in the provincial election. He's obviously just trying to ride Reza's coattails. I see him all over the place, putting himself forward as if he's somebody. Who does he think he is, and what makes him think he can do this? I like him. He walks the walk and talks the talk. He's helped put the federal Liberals strongly into the conversation in Richmond Hill politics, and I think we've got the local excitement to help us win the next election. He built a business here in Richmond Hill. It's good to see someone take a stand and speak out. I don't like him. He just joined the Liberal Party. He's not really a Liberal. He hasn't put in his time. He hasn't paid his dues. If he really cared about Liberals in Richmond Hill, he'd wait, run at a later time, and let someone else who's truly a Liberal be our candidate. I like him. Justin's leadership has attracted a lot of new Liberals into the party, and Brian represents a new energy for us. Our party is going places, bringing in youth, re-energizing seniors, and engaging Canadians in a new vision. Brian understands this new vision, and it speaks to him, and he can communicate it to us and the voters in Richmond Hill. He's the right person for this job. My friends, thank you for coming tonight. I want you to know that I've heard these and many other conversations that are going on about me as I engage in the open nomination process. These are 3 examples of many conversations in which the same events or the same situation can be viewed 2 very different ways, depending on how the viewer chooses to see them. Each of these 6 views are equally accurate or equally inaccurate. They represent opinions, not only facts, and the viewer gets to choose which view to take. Politics and democracy are about choice. We get to choose how we view events and situations. We decide on the filter through which we see this world. And our politicians have a great role to play in how we see things. Tonight, I'll be the politician and see if we can agree on some things about our community, our country, and the work that needs to be done. I'll be inviting you to look at our possible future and to consider the choices you can make to help us get there. I'll make 3 main points tonight before I ask you to help me set some things right. First point, our current government in Ottawa is ineffective. And I'm being kind. Often I think it is downright dysfunctional. Until we fix this, we have little hope of getting breakthrough results as a country. Second point, we don't all feel we are included in this conversation. Men continue to enjoy an advantage over women. Newcomers struggle for longer than they should to be fully accepted into our society. People continue to be excluded due to religious affiliation, sexual orientation, or for other factors our Charter of Rights specifically protects us against. In short, Canada has not arrived yet. Canada may be ahead of many countries, including the countries some of us were born in, but that does not mean Canada's mission is complete. Canada aspires to be what it laid out in its charter, and our politics must continue to move us toward that. We cannot accept a standard for Canada or a view of Canada that comes as cheaply as, well, at least we're better than, and you can fill in whatever country you want. Third point, we've lost our sense of balance, and we have a lot of work to do in order to recapture that balance. I speak here of certain natural balances, such as the balance between the rich and the poor, where the middle class is not shrinking and growing the working poor. The balance between small and big businesses, where big businesses tend to get favor over small and mid-sized businesses, even though it's small and mid-sized businesses that create real jobs for us. And also the balance between rapidly selling off our natural resources and building a country that creates lots of jobs where our people are. The decisions that must be made and the work that must be undertaken will take all hands on deck working together. So we must restore an effective government, and we must include everyone in realizing solutions. I have a large vision for Canada and the work that needs to be done to build a better future for our kids, our grandkids, and generations to come. I'll lay aspects of this vision out for you a little later, and it is this vision that has compelled me to be a leader in politics. I like to get the big things right, to take on the hard work, and to execute the plan with a great team. We should not leave important work for someone else to do, to worry about some other time. So again, my 3 main points. Let's make government work for us, let's include everyone, and let's get to work and restore balance. I have a few people to thank. First, I want to thank all of our performers for this evening. Bill, I've already mentioned you. I gave you your thank you a little earlier, but thanks again. Liz Couture. Liz and I have known each other since about 2005. She taught music to my daughters, but I really know her through the small but fun political efforts that we shared with the Green Party of Ontario. Recently, Liz was a little surprised to see that her name was featured on a list of supporters for Liz Wolfert. Liz is on record on my website endorsing me, and her endorsement remains. Liz works now with Fair Vote Canada and is making efforts to both raise voter turnout and to ensure all voices in the political spectrum are included more fairly in Canada's government. Both Liz Wolfert and I recently signed off on a petition Liz Couture put together encouraging Canada to review a proportional representation model as an alternative to the first past the post system that gave Stephen Harper a majority government with less than 40% of the votes. Policy 31 at the Montreal Liberal Convention called for a review of Canada's democratic methods and recommendations that may include proportional representation. I voted for this policy and it was passed, making it an official policy of the Liberal Party of Canada. In this open nomination process, Liberals may disagree on how to conduct the fight, but we should not be disagreeing on what to fight for. Liz, thanks for your friendship and for the beautiful music and the dedication. Thank you very much. And thanks to the speakers. Nick, you know that your friendship has been an ace in the hole for me since we met in 1984. You embody hard work and dedication, and your academic and professional credentials are testament to that. We know each other as friends first, but I may need to lean on you a little, and others, for guidance as we seek to a more sustainable pension model for Canada. Policy 71, passed in Montreal, calls for pension enhancements in order to provide a retirement income for seniors that will ensure they retain dignity and remain above poverty lines as they age. To call for this is an important first step. To make it happen takes hard work from a team, and I'm glad that I will have you around to discuss ideas on this important issue when Justin and our team begin making this a reality. I'll say more about our friend Steve later. Miriam, I am deeply impressed by people who have passion for a cause and work so very hard to get things and set things right. It is so challenging to take a stand against the status quo, regardless of how obviously wrong status quo may appear to be, and I applaud your years of effort. More so, I am impressed that you have expanded your outlook from Iran's regime to the cause for peaceful progress through all of the world's nations. This work is desperately needed, and I'll do what I can to support it and encourage everyone here to consider how they might also help you out. I'll work hard for world peace through my political efforts. It is so great to know others are doing the same through social advocacy and innovative methods. Thank you for sharing your perspective and enthusiasm with me, and thank you for being here. Iskander, I thank you for your confidence in me. I see in you all the right stuff to be an effective politician, and I may be working to help you along those lines in the not-too-distant future. Developing talent is a key part of preparing for our future, and it is my honor to work with you. And one last time, thanks to all of you for being here. This is a very special audience to me. My friends, with friends old and new, filled with people with exceptional commitment, stories, and talent. If I began to select individuals in the audience to thank especially, we'd be here all night. So let's avoid that. I must thank Carolyn, my wife. As Nick mentioned, your love and support for me has been exemplary. I know you'd prefer I did not gush, but you do make it hard for me not to. Simply put, none of this would be possible without your daily commitment to the team we formalized when we got married in 1991. Thank you from my heart. And I will point out other politicians in this audience. Please stand when I mention you. David West. David is my Ward 4 councillor and is seeking re-election in October. David Cohen. David is a past councillor for Richmond Hill and is running for election as regional councillor in Richmond Hill. Marjana Curie. Marjan's running for Ward 2. Might get an improvement there. Karen Silovitz. She's stepped out. She's missed her great moment. Okay, that's fine. And finally, is Leona still here? Leona has headed out. Okay, so Leona Krofchak was here as well. She's running for the Liberal nomination in Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. So please take the time to give these people your ear. Oh, there's Karen, she's back. Give these people your ear and your consideration if you're in a position where you can vote for them or support them in some other way. These are all good people who make a difference. So, I come to my first point. Our government in Ottawa is ineffective. Stephen Harper is guilty of some egregious violations of fair practice and lacks the human decency we expect from a leader. When facing the possibility of losing a vote of confidence in December 2009 over his vicious attack on public funding of political parties, in short, he wasn't getting his way, I saw him stand on the steps of our House of Parliament on a Friday and tell reporters that the vote would be held on a Monday, on the following Monday. On Saturday, he convinced the Governor General to prorogue Parliament so he would not have to face this music. His first success at avoiding the rightful consequences of his political acts was so enjoyable to him that he is now determined proroguing is a logical and fun way to avoid almost anything. First off, let's have a government that actually shows up for work. In the In-N-Out scandal, Harper skirted campaign financing rules in his own favor and was penalized by Elections Canada. And with robocalls in 2011, he deliberately tried to send identified Liberal supporters on a trip to the wrong voting stations on Election Day. And with the falsely named Fair Elections Act, Harper has made voter suppression legal. If democracy says no to my ideas, I'll reevaluate my ideas. Harper reevaluates democracy. Democracy is not something we need less of, we need more. When I went to see Michael Ignatieff speak, he talked about the Sunday night flights from Toronto to Ottawa and its load of members of parliament. Even in the lineups to get on the airplane, those MPs do not talk across party lines. Liberals talk to Liberals, Conservatives to Conservatives, NDP to NDP. When I heard Justin refer to the Conservatives who live in our communities not as our enemies but as our neighbors, I knew he shared my expectation that we can do better. We can be civil and respectful of all of our MP colleagues, regardless of political stripe, and build the multi-factored solutions that the people we represent would expect. During my campaigning, I have spoken to many politicians, even ones from the Conservative Party and the NDP. And I have spoken to voters from all affiliations. To win in Richmond Hill, we will need to represent both the call for the prudent, efficient use of tax money that is the rallying cry for Conservatives, and the call for social justice for the working poor and homeless that is common within the NDP. As Liberals, we are tasked with finding the right balance to ensure tax investments in social programs pay off for Canada as a whole, and we can do that better if we consult expertise from all parties. I am having those conversations and will continue to do so. I believe that government should have your back, not be in your face. To my second point, this palace and the people in it are Canada. As you look at the walls of this room, you see evidence of the historic Persian Empire and its rich culture. Canadians come from all countries of the world, and because of this, Canada's history is world history. Persians pride themselves on a rich tradition of being multicultural and great welcoming hosts. Canada aspires to that. Persians pride themselves on having the first written documentation decrying human rights. It's on the wall in the next room. Canada has its own charter of rights and freedoms, guaranteeing all will be included because we have so much in common, not excluded because we have small differences that make us unique. In the last election, buying a ticket to a Conservative event was leading to a background check of your Facebook posts. If you were deemed to be sufficiently anti-Harper, you were not welcomed at the event. This violation of free democracy rightly offends Canadians, but it pales by comparison to the ramifications of undesirable posts in other countries. My friend Steve, that Nick talked about, who's been happily partnered with my other friend Scott for longer than Carol and I have been married, would be in prison for life in Uganda. Canada must continue to strive for the moral and ethical high ground on human rights and peace. And we must factor human rights and the effects on regular citizens heavily into our stances on foreign affairs. As we work to achieve peace here in Canada and abroad, we must remember that today's adversary may become tomorrow's ally. Recently, Justin quoted Churchill when he said, "To jaw, meaning to talk, is always better than to wage war." In this room, we have so many Canadians. Some of us may hyphenate that. We've got Iranian Canadians, we've got some Chinese Canadians, we've got Italian Canadians. If that works for you, that's fine. Let's celebrate that together. But I'll never put that hyphenated part upon you. And I hear the Canadian part the same with or without the hyphen. We are Canadians, this is Canada, and we will go forward together. I picked up my life and came to Canada because I hoped for a better life. But when I get here, it's difficult to get started. I struggle with the language and learning a new culture. I'm qualified to do so much more. How can I get working? This dialogue started when the first European settlers set up amongst the native peoples. And it repeated through wave upon wave of immigrants that were seen as somehow unique at the time. In the town where I grew up, I witnessed the last stages of Protestant prejudice against Catholics. I heard from my cousins in Hamilton about prejudice against Italians during the mid-1970s, and it repeats. I want this stopped. But regardless of whether we are successful, you can rest assured that this will pass. When was the last time you heard of Protestant-Catholic strife in Canada? I have heard during this campaign people who seek to be members of Parliament speak about representing Canada, Richmond Hill, and their community. I don't have a community other than Richmond Hill. We are all together Richmond Hill, and our MP will represent all of us. Justin Trudeau said in Montreal that in Canada there is no us and them, there is only us. We must reflect that here in Richmond Hill. As we build Canada, we must unlearn many of the lessons of hatred and exclusion we may have learned elsewhere. Your enemy from the old world might be your neighbor, your coworker, your ally, or your friend in Canada. I know it takes something to do that, but that's what starting anew is all about. We know what a divided world looks like, and its future is very predictable. Conflict, struggle, destruction, and exclusion, wasting human potential. From a peaceful Canada, we have a unique opportunity to join our voices across cultures, across religions, across social classes, and demonstrate what a united world can be: peaceful, empowering, and inclusive. And we can export that. And here's my acid test on whether Canada is fully inclusive and is delivered on its Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I have a wonderful volunteer. Not here tonight, because she's studying for her grade 11 exams. She came to Canada from Tanzania at the age of 3 and is being raised in the Muslim faith. At about 5, she declared that she wanted to be Prime Minister of Canada. Would Canada today elect a Muslim woman as its Prime Minister? I don't think so. So we've got some more barriers to tear down. So once we have better political practices and a community voice that includes all of us, what do we want to take on? I have a survey that is available from a link on every email that I send from my campaign account. This asks people in Richmond Hill to prioritize 10 of the key policies that came out of Montreal. I do not have enough responses, and the survey is not official, but I'm happy to share where we're at with the early going, because I do think it reflects some of the areas where people are seeing that imbalance. First is climate change. Perhaps that's not surprising, as people know I'm talking to know it is important to me, but I do want to point out that a survey taken last year reported that 67% of Liberal voters believed in man-made climate change. If 2/3 of us believe we are causing a problem, and we are reasonably educated on the serious consequences of the problem, would it not stand to reason that a large number of us would want something done about it? This is not my speech about climate change. I have studied the problem in depth and consider its resolution to be a problem I would happily commit much of my working effort toward. I'll make just 2 points on this and leave the rest for more detailed discussions. First, managing the environment and managing the economy in Canada are the same thing. Unless we take an absurdly short-term view, we cannot get economic gains at a cost to the environment, because climate change consequences will bring risk costs into the equation. Already, businesses that are heavily into fossil fuels are being devalued due to the inevitably needed regulation on carbon emissions. Stéphane Dion was ahead of his time on this matter. A carbon tax is not the only way to reduce carbon emissions, but we must have an open discussion about all ways. It is ridiculous that climate change is an issue that is perceived to reside with a specific political party. It is clearly a concern for everyone. I am encouraged by Obama's recent moves. Secondly, on climate change is possibly the largest human rights dilemma the world has ever faced. Countries that choose to live and emit in such a way as to cause drought or flooding and subsequent famine or displacement on other, often poorer countries are at the least guilty of a violation of the basic human rights of the citizens of that other country. So yes, you can expect me to contribute on Canada's environmental file, and particularly to the economic opportunities it creates. With all change, business opportunities abound. And you can expect me to do this with a passion that comes from knowing it is the right thing to do for our economy and for human rights. Canada has to stop earning that dinosaur award every year for being worst on greenhouse gas emission reductions. Second on this survey is restoring trust in Canada's democracy. I mentioned Policy 31 earlier, but the single most significant thing that we can do, and I can do, to restore trust in Canada's democracy is to fire Stephen Harper and replace him with Justin Trudeau. Stephen Harper is an accomplished politician and a formidable adversary, but he has proven so many times that he cannot be trusted. As to Justin, I am immensely impressed. Most recently, when interviewed on CBC's The Current this week, he mentioned that he makes decisions not along partisan lines, but with consideration for whether it creates a better world for his kids, as that is the only way that he can justify letting his job take him away from them so much. Ditto. Moving along on the survey, we have the reforms to Canada's pension plan that I mentioned earlier, followed by an affordable national housing strategy. Both of these would go a long way toward averting an oncoming crisis of poverty. We need solutions for the middle class to grow the economy. Our wealthiest can't expect, and I don't think that they do expect, to continue to benefit more and more financially at a cost of a growing number of poor people. Next on is the policy calling for a national transportation strategy. That was written right here in Richmond Hill. Partnering with provinces through a long-term commitment for transportation infrastructure improvements is great for the economy. It's great for greenhouse gas emission reductions, and it improves our quality of life through better commutes. Construction may be a short-term pain, but it is a long-term gain, so let's get digging. We want our subway. And the last policy I'll highlight from my ordered survey of the 10 key policies is the National Framework on Mental Health. Mental illness affects 20% of our population, and it is usually preventable or at least treatable. Canada currently allocates 5.5% of its health budget to mental health, and the World Health Organization recommends 10%. Mental health and addiction can often lead to homelessness or vice versa, so this policy ties in with the Affordable National Housing Strategy. Liberals, with their Policy 51, called for mental health allocations to be raised to between 8 and 10%, and I have good news for you on this front. I visited the Craftsman Center in Richmond Hill and spoken with people in recovery from mental health and addiction conditions. They're bright, helpful, knowledgeable, and seriously interested in making their support system both more effective and, to my surprise, they even gave me an earful on how their ideas could save taxpayers money. This was an excellent reminder to me that the best solutions always come from talking to the stakeholders directly. I see all of the matters above as simply a question of getting our priorities right and finding the right balance between the vested interests in the status quo and the democratic will of our majority. We can make anything happen with the right blend of political will and prudent decisions. So there you have the three things I'll be taking to the streets, the coffee shops, the living rooms of people in Richmond Hill. Better government, including everyone, and restoring the balance our democracy demands. And I'd appreciate your help with setting up those conversations or having them on my behalf. But before I can ask you to do that, I must answer the question you all feel too polite to ask. Why Brian? This is the part of the speech I like the least because I have to talk about myself. I believe politics should be about the voters and the results that they want. The leader must simply hear the will of the people, align to it, and serve to the best of his or her ability to achieve that will. Michael Ignatieff wrote that the politician will not always know on entering politics what his constituency will ask for. I became a candidate because I was inspired by numerous examples of strong politicians, and I felt ready to pitch in. I was interviewed for the newspaper in 2011, and I cited Richmond Hill's multicultural diversity as the best thing about living in Richmond Hill. That is a matter of public record. I am not now, nor have I ever been, a one-issue candidate. I'm a proud father, and I try to be a decent husband. Being a good father is, as Justin recently said, my driving force. To quote him, "Am I building a better country for my kids? That's the only thing that justifies me being away from them as much as I am. It's about doing everything I can to make sure they are growing up in a better world." Although I quote Justin, I have said this myself numerous times. I had a strong academic record. I maintained a scholarship throughout my undergraduate studies and graduated with honors. At University of Waterloo, I studied sciences. In addition to the double major between pure mathematics and combinatorics and optimization, I had enough chemistry credits for a minor in chemistry and enough physics credits for a minor in physics. They don't add minors onto double majors. So I believe in science, and I love that the Liberal Party talks about evidence-based policy in all of its decisions. In business, I moved up quickly. I was a manager at the age of 22 and first reported to the president of an $80 million corporate division at 24. I quit one of the highest paying jobs among my peers at 25 without a replacement job so I could learn more and pursue my passion for helping people achieve results. I landed a consulting position working for Tom over there 3 weeks after leaving. I've worked on contract and with senior management in large corporations. SAP Canada and Magna International are the most recognizable brands on my resume, and Johnson & Johnson is the most recognizable client for the IT consulting firm I founded in 2003. We continue to operate profitably today without much of my attention. And Tom and Arpi over there are both people that I worked for during my career, and now they hold senior leadership positions with Answers for Business. I know good people when I see them, and I keep them. Answers for Business has provided work for over 100 separate contractors over its 11 years of operations. I haven't done Tim Hudak's job math on that yet, but it's a lot of jobs. And we make opportunities for all qualified people. I remember helping Tommy Dew secure his first Canadian contract when his English was new. He was so obviously brilliant that the time I spent with him over coffee was inspiring. He now runs the company that Joyce works for. I taught Joyce SAP, and she earned her certification from that course at Seneca College before going to work for Tommy. I remember giving Eduardo Ruiz his first Canadian job as a new immigrant from Mexico. He left Mexico because the police there decided he hadn't paid enough tax and he should pay it directly to them within 24 hours. He paid it and then made his plans to leave. And Andrew Zhu, I was told he did not have adequate communication skills, which can be too often an euphemism for he hasn't been here long enough and he's not one of us yet, really. I met with him anyway and saw that he was committed and hardworking, so I gave him his start. And finally, I remember Yoon Yin. She left her husband and daughter behind when she came to Canada to try to build a new life. We had worked for her for 18 months, and during one summer, her daughter came and visited. Her daughter, who was 11 at the time, was asked whether she'd prefer to live in Canada or in China. And she said, Canada because the sky is blue. You see, when I ask people why they came to Canada, I often see that look, where they think I must have two heads. How can I ever ask that question? It's always the same answer, hope. So yes, hope and hard work can work. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about us and how we'll win this nomination, and more importantly, the election. Winning in politics is based on having a strong message. For us, that's balance for our country, including everyone, and delivering good government. Balance, inclusion, good government, that's big. So we have a big message. Now we need to get it out there. That takes you. Maybe you can be a formal volunteer, going door to door, making phone calls, posting on social media, organizing events and gatherings. Or maybe you'll be an informal supporter, just mentioning what you know about the message in your everyday discussions with people around this community. Either way, your conversations help. And please ensure everyone knows that they must have a membership in order to ensure our success at the nomination. We have 3 worthy political opponents out making similar efforts, and I'd hate to miss victory because people forgot to buy memberships. And we can reach more people and make it easier to get through conversations faster if we have materials and advertising. Those cost money. So if you have money but not time, you can still help with financial support. It's a noisy world. There's a lot of competition for attention just within politics, with the municipal elections, the recent provincial and by-elections, not to mention the noise from every other marketing effort. We can talk all we want, but people take more notice of actions. That's why I was happy to participate in the 360 Kids experience and play the part of a homeless youth for a night. That raised money in this community that will help those kids. That is why I also joined a Toastmasters group that operates entirely in French. I'm not particularly good at French, but I'm getting there. I now have a feel for what it must be like to land in Richmond Hill with little English capability and be told to just get out there and get a job. Where do you start? So it's going to take some support. I have taken action that helps me understand the people I seek to represent. I will see it through their eyes and trust that they will like the view that is created when you care, play fair and by the rules, work hard, and take no shortcuts. Thank you all for hearing me out. Thanks for your support tonight and for any support you can bring going forward. This movement is about us. I have made my commitment to this town, and I will continue to contribute to the best of my ability, win or lose. Whether this movement is chosen and goes to Ottawa is not really very dependent on whether I will take action. It is now much more dependent on whether you will. Let's do this together. Thank you.